Welcome to the Omnibus Show, a program for people who are interested in everything, with deep conversations on a wide variety of subjects. And now your host, Dave Gibbs.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Omnibus Show, the program for people who are interested in everything, with deep conversations on a wide variety of subjects. In this episode, we'd like to welcome Greg Hall, who is the Dean, and Valerie Eichmeyer, Professor in Sculpture at the Herron School of Art and Design at Indiana University, Indianapolis. He has an MFA from the University of Delaware and a BFA from Kansas City Art Institute. Prior to his time at Herron, he also taught the sculpture department at the Kansas City Art Institute. He's an Ephraimson Contemporary Art Fellow, a two-time Creative Renewal Fellowship recipient, and one of the two inaugural recipients of the Arts Council of Indianapolis Transformational Impact Fellowship. He also serves as a commissioner on the Indiana Arts Commission. That's quite a mouthful. Greg, welcome.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here.
Really grateful to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to our conversation because I'd mentioned all that stuff in your introduction, but that will play into our conversation because there's so much we will and we can talk about. And so as I like to go back to the beginning with arts, being the dean as you're sitting on the mountain looking down at all the students and everybody, going back to your origin, in your story, what drew you into the arts? What was your life experience?
I think growing up with my mother is a plein air painter, and growing up with her painting every day, I just thought everyone made art, so I just assumed everybody was an artist, which was exciting.
That is exciting.
Sixth grade, the superintendent of schools came to visit our class and was sure he was going to teach us square dancing or something, but he taught us how to do perspective drawing, and in that moment, I got really excited about the arts in a different way, in a more architectural way, and was very fortunate in middle school. Had an artist as my art teacher, a practicing artist, and one day he asked me if I wanted to help teach the class because I was helping people do things, and I said yes. And so, so he let me walk around with him and talk to other students. Had great teachers in high school and in college. Been very fortunate to have really incredible mentors, and that really created lots of pathways for me to sort of see the arts as a way to engage with just an infinite number of fields, and it's been really engaging.
Well, thank you. That's great. So, moving that to where you're at now and the works that you've worked on, can you please tell us what was that pathway?
Yeah, happy to. I was very fortunate. I had really incredible mentors. An opportunity came up shortly after I graduated to create a memorial for Amelia Earhart to celebrate the 100th anniversary of her birth. And so
wow.
In the city she was born in Atchison, Kansas. And so I created a proposal, and I didn't think I'd get picked because it was going to be more expensive than the budget was supposed to be, but I created a proposal that created a place where pilots could interact with a memorial for Amelia Earhart. So this bridge built in the 30s in her hometown, I lined the profile of the bridge with fiber optic cable so I could change the color of that. And then each of the two peaks, I set beacons, searchlights that just shot straight up in the air, like 10,000 feet, so you could fly through them. And that's
pretty cool.
We got to light that on the 100th anniversary of her birth, and which was very exciting. And
did you have all these pilots thread?
We did, and I got to fly through it that night, which was really exciting.
That's very exciting.
And Amelia Earhart had always been a sort of a hero of mine. And I grew up, my father was a pilot, and so, but in that space, I found that I could sort of set a goal, and if I committed to it, I could achieve it, which was really exciting. And for me, light was a material that I wanted to work with, so that opened the door for lots of other opportunities. And the Creative Renewal Fellowships actually created some opportunities for me too. I got to travel to Scotland with one of those, with the first one, and got to see where my family historically came from. And,
oh, that's great.
Yes, I got to actually, while I was there, I saw a waterfall and realized that when our family had originally lived in Scotland, they'd seen the same waterfall. So in that moment, I was able to time travel. And for me, it was exciting because growing up, I used to spend a lot of time playing on a waterfall.
Yeah.
And
so it has a sort of a cross-connection kind of thing.
Yeah, that waterfall was man-made. And when I found that out, I was disappointed. But that actually helped me understand, well,
The one here.
The one here in the States was
yeah.
In Richmond, Indiana, where I'm from. Is man-made. And then seeing this one that my family had seen hundreds of years ago in
Yes.
Scotland was an exciting moment. In that moment, I realized, well, I can make a waterfall. So that led to creating video waterfalls, where I could take video and audio recordings of waterfalls and then create those so I could make man-made waterfalls in spaces. And so had an opportunity when I was invited to create work for the Super Bowl in an exhibition called Turf. It was a series of installations to create a waterfall in that space. And so create a waterfall that came down the walls and then across the room, and then build a bridge that lets you walk over it, and you could hear the water running. And, I found that to be really engaging. So this opportunity to kind of combine art and technology has always been exciting to me. And I've found technology to be like any raw material and like any tool. If you pursue it far enough, if you dig deep enough, if you get past the bells and whistles, there is poetry. The poetics are in the technology if you look hard enough, if you go find it. And so that's been a really important vehicle for expanding the work that I do. But I like tying together both traditional and emerging technologies. I think that's an important space that the artists do. I think one of the special things that artists can do is to humanize technology and just make it more available. But that's led to other projects I've done. Well, you had mentioned the Transformational Impact Fellowship in that one. It's okay to build on that.
Yes.
Well, for that program, I was one of the two inaugural recipients of the Transformational Impact Fellowship. Brian Fonseca was the other artist, and he was developing work on the west side, where he was in the community talking to the people that live there, helping them to understand, yes, you have many amazing stories, and turning those into plays. And he was wonderful to work with. The community, so he chose that community. The community that I chose to work with was the healthcare community. And in that,
That's fascinating.
Yeah,
because everybody goes through that at some time or other.
Exactly. I thought in that space it would work with everyone from every walk of life, from every age. And so part of what I was understanding was that in those spaces, when you enter the healthcare community, you have to give over a certain degree of control. And so I wanted to use the arts as a way to give control back. And I was aware that art had a really positive impact on healing. In fact, research I was doing, looking back to some of the original artists that were part of the Herron School of Art and Design, the Herron Art Institute, the John Herron Art Institute. T.C. Steele and others created murals in the city hospital at that time, and they're positioned really high on the wall. The first time I saw them, I thought, that's why they're so high. And then I realized they're for patients to look at while they're lying in their beds. And so there was an understanding that nature and art has a positive impact on healing. And so I was excited to build on that. So that's why I wanted to work with that community. Then we ended up working, well, it was a collaboration with an art therapist, Juliet King, and with the head of neurology, Dr. Robert Pascuzzi, at the Neuroscience Center. And Dr. Pascuzzi helped us connect with his patients. He was working with patients navigating ALS. So we started working with those patients.
That's significant.
Yeah, that group goes through a significant, sort of steady.
Well, it's a muscular decline.
It is. It's a progressive loss of mobility.
Lou Gehrig's disease.
Yes. And so I started creating tools that would allow those individuals to make art so they could engage with the art therapist at a time when they couldn't use traditional art-making tools. So started using things like breath and eye tracking and other ways of pulling data from the body that they could control to make digital imagery and dynamic digital imagery that could change as they wanted it to change.
Did you give them, is it a screen that to breathe on and to interact with?
I made different devices. Eye tracking, I had just a tool, so as they looked at the wall, they could see they were drawing wherever their eyes were looking. So that became their drawing tool.
That's like that plays very much into neurological processes,
which I found to be really engaging to be in that space, working as an artist, but also getting to work with the patients, and then creating work in those spaces. For some, initially, it was a little intimidating to do a wall-sized drawing. So I worked with them to build tools that, as you begin to draw, a pattern would start to appear. So it was mirrored, and so I learned a lot since working with these patients, and we worked together to develop the tools, and then use other methods to pull data from the body. There's a resource called a galvanic skin response sensor. Galvanic skin response.
Oh, galvanic.
Yes. So it pulls data from 2 fingers, and it just measures changes in conductivity of the skin. So basically what it's measuring is slight changes in moisture in the skin. And those changes happen as you go through mild emotional changes. So either through conversation, or if the patient couldn't speak, then we'd have a family member take them through a series of stories of memories that they would remember. And that would
Gotcha.
help to change the wavelength. I made a sine wave that could change in terms of the wavelength and the color and the speed based on the data I was pulling from the body and giving that control back to the patient and then projecting on the wall. And then one of the exciting things about that project, we got to occasionally project that onto the outside, the exterior of the Neuroscience Center, and which was exciting. Those are 4 to 5 story video images made by the patients. And in that moment, we achieved our ultimate goal, which was to give control of the hospital to the patients.
Yeah, that's fascinating because, yeah, that's a mind flip, really, because I think a lot of the critique of the technological advances and so forth has been that it's just become unhuman or inhuman. And then now you've got something in which you're using technology to actually share with the public what the patients are going through. So it's like they're living, it's like making art out of them breathing and so forth, you know, that's fascinating.
Yes.
So it takes that art to a whole new level.
And it was also exciting because sometimes family members of the patients were at a point in the progression of the disease where they couldn't communicate anymore. So making art together and being able to give them a copy of what they made together was really impactful.
That's great.
That was some of the most exciting work I had done. That was just before becoming dean. So we're still looking for ways to expand that work, but it's been exciting.
That is exciting. I mean, touching people's lives like that with art, that is truly transformative. And that's just incredible. Some of the other work that you've done that I like personally is your blue pieces, or I call them the blue lights.
Yes.
But one we talked about before was downtown on the roof.
Yes, it's called the Emily Building. It's,
Yes.
had historically been the third floor of the building was a jazz a place where jazz music was shared, and so it was a jazz.
Hence the orchid.
Yes, actually, it was called Black Orchid, and
But I mean the roof.
right.
like-
So that sculpture is called Night Orchid, and it was kind of based on that because in that space, jazz music and musicians brought the community together from all walks of life that came together around jazz. And I was trying to think of something to create there that would really reference that. And to me, jazz is very special. There's something just really remarkable about it. I always thought there's a level of brilliance embedded in jazz. And I really believe that just the idea of genius and brilliance isn't necessarily something that people are born with. It's something that you develop. And I really believe that genius is on the wind, that if you just tap into it, that if you are open and receptive, you can engage it. And to me, that's what jazz does. So I wanted to create something that would allow that to happen. So I created all these vertical elements that could blow in the wind, and they're lit with neon, and as the wind would blow, they would actually generate sound. And so you could hear the wind blowing it. And in that sense, we were making jazz on the wind as a way.
That's very clever. No, that's just wonderful, and I love the blue color with that. It's but that is interesting. You wouldn't think Indianapolis is a jazz town, but it is one of the jazz towns with West Montgomery and all
Yes.
and all of the others. And I think you're right that there's a level of genius there in the musicianship. You know, a lot of that is not on the fly, but when you're doing improv.
Yes.
And probably one of the best interviews of all time on music was Oscar Peterson with, who was the raconteur in the 70s? He had a TV show. You know who I'm talking about?
I do. I'm trying to
Not
think of the name.
Carol. Dick Cavett.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Dick Cavett and Oscar Peterson. It'll be on YouTube, but and Oscar Peterson was a brilliant pianist, and he talks about the different pianists and so forth, and he's got this fluidity about music that is beyond the 3-chord song.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so very much so, yes. And that sounds like just a perfect location for that kind of a work.
because that building is on Indiana Avenue, and yes,
Yeah.
and the history of jazz in Indiana Avenue has a really rich and amazing history. So I'm happy to do what I can to help raise awareness around that, and would love to create more work that brings attention to that, and more work that makes sound.
Yeah, well, that's fabulous. Good sound's always welcome. Well, thank you so much. These some really great examples of interactive art
Thank you. Yes.
that has touched a number of lives. It takes art to a whole new level from, usually people think of sculpture and painting and the more, if you will, the traditional arts,
Right.
and takes it to a whole new level. So,
And I enjoyed the traditional arts as well, but I like to think of technology just as another tool that we can use to advance the arts. And, yes.
of course, well, it's part of the evolving nature of the arts, isn't it?
When new technologies develop, I start thinking, well, how can we embed that in the arts? And
Yeah.
So, like with the internet, it's like, how can we make an interactive art piece? So,
Well, you are doing that
Yes,
here in our area. So,
yes.
well, that's fabulous, Greg. We'll be back in for chapter 2. We're going to take a brief break right now, and we're going to learn more about art from Greg Hull. Hi, we're back for chapter 2 in our interview with Greg Hull, who is the dean at the Herron School of Art and Design at Indiana University in Indianapolis. Wow, you have some great stories there, Greg. Since we kind of ended off on kind of where things were happening in arts, in introduction, or as new technologies introduced, you just have a very fascinating thought about how to bring that in. Because it seems like we're still kind of in a transitional historical time. I think we're in a new period that's not defined yet. Though the historians will define it, we're just, while we're on the air, we are not defined yet, because it's different than what was in the past.
Sure.
And so my first question for chapter 2 would be, since we're of the same vintage, since we were in college, how has art changed that you've observed?
Thank you. I think it's a great question. I think art has evolved over time, like history, and kind of in relationship to the moment that the art's happening in, the moment that we live in. And areas that I've seen change a lot over the time since we left college have been around technology, but also in the way that art is sort of engaging the community. And so I've really appreciated the way the public art has evolved.
Yeah.
It used to be that public art was made and then just taken and set in the community, and which there's amazing work out there, but sometimes it was funds were set aside because it was going to get spray painted, and it wasn't necessarily...
Gotcha.
Yeah, so one of the things I really have valued is now the way we pursue public art is we go into the community and we listen and we learn, we meet the community, and we don't sort of say, okay, we're going to create something so this becomes a destination. We go in and we learn about the community. We learn that it is a destination, and we celebrate those things, and we work together to create new knowledge, which allows that work to be really impactful, to add something, but by elevating what's already there. And so acknowledging that. And I think that's been a way to humanize the process as well, and to and both in terms of the professional practice, but also within the academic setting, to have great opportunities for the students to go into the community and to engage community members, to find the historian that lives in the community, and to help elevate those things. And those become important resources as well. So it's humanizing the process and engaging with the community, and sort of recognizing the sort of impact that the creative economy has on the larger economy. And so that the arts actually play a really vital role, and always have, but I think we're beginning to recognize it more fully, that one of the true barometers for the health of any community is the arts. And so this is an area that we want to continue to leverage, but we don't do it through exclusionary processes. We do it by inclusive processes. And in those spaces, engaging with audiences and listening and learning has been really exciting. And not just for students, professional artists going into those spaces and listening and learning, I think has made the work even more impactful and more engaging, more points of entry for the audience to engage and understand. But I also think that evolving technologies has also been really exciting, and one of the historic areas of sculpture was around carving and figure modeling, working with stone and stone
Clay
carving.
and bronze and stone.
Yes.
Yeah.
And some of those are now being connected directly with technology, and there's carving techniques you can use that are driven by technology. And one of the things that's been exciting, we continue to do foundry work. So one of the traditional sculptural practices is foundry work. So we would sculpt material out of clay, and use what was called the lost wax process.
Can you explain that to us?
Yes. So a sculptor would make a work out of clay, and then make a mold around that out of plaster with some sand, so it can hold up to the heat of the process. Put the mold into a kiln and melt the wax out, which means that there's a void inside that plaster mold, and then melt the bronze and pour that inside of it. And so what we're doing now is 3D printing objects.
3D printing.
So creating objects using computers. I've had students that will create them using VR headsets, so they create the entire work in a space that is completely virtual. And then
with the goggles.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
And
so they create that
in a three-dimensional virtual space. Yes.
Wow.
Yes, and so they're sculpting in that space, and then print that object out. Not everybody has to work with the headset, but some are just working directly on a computer to create this three-dimensional object. And we're actually starting a project soon where we're going to be downloading a collection of work from historic sites, and then making three-dimensional collages digitally, and then we're going to 3D print those. But what we're doing right now in the foundry is we 3D print these objects, make the mold around that, melt out the material that was 3D printed, and then we're pouring bronze into those molds. And in that moment, we're combining 5,000 years of technology, which is, I think, a sign of a good day. So, yes.
to sort of move the ball forward as such. In this case, move the bronze forward. That's really fascinating. My first experience with 3D printing was my brother and I had gone to that conference that the MIT and Caltech have every year, which I'm forgetting the name of it, but that was the AI conference in 2015. But during that, there was a couple that gave a demonstration of 3D printing, which was developing, and it's developed since then quite a bit, because that's now been what we're talking about, 8-9 years. Actually, what they did was they created a dress out of some kind of carbon, maybe carbon and rubber fabric, but they showed how they printed it and so forth, and they printed it out in this process, and it's like, there it was. And I thought, that's incredible. And then now you've got students making bronze with 3D.
Well, I'm going to investigate that, because we also have a wearable show we do every year. This year was our 20th anniversary. Students make wearable work, sometimes fashion-based, but sometimes we had set it up so that students could make work that made it either easier to engage the world or harder.
Okay.
It made a great...
Depending on what their mood was.
Right, exactly.
You know those artists.
Yes. I'd be excited to explore that side too, because I think fibers is an area that we have a lot of student interest in that as well. And
yeah.
Yes. So, I think AI is an important topic, and we've had a lot of students that were nervous about AI, and
yeah.
I try to make sure to explain that when the camera was invented, there was a real fear that would be the death of painting, and it wasn't. It actually elevated painting.
Kind of took it to
a level that was more tied to the conceptual side and to the content, and so trying to make sure people are not scared of AI. And I got to teach a class last semester on creative coding. It was the first time I taught a coding class, but I found coding to be kind of interesting. But in that class, not having students use AI to write code, but about halfway through the class, I helped students find examples of code online that was making really dynamic video and sound work. And then because it was open source, we could take the code and then take the code to AI and have AI explain line by line how the code was working as a way to build on their experience in writing code.
Interesting.
So we're using AI as a tool, and it's like
it's like a tool.
Exactly.
And so you're using AI to understand the process,
right?
So they can create their own process for what they're they're creating.
Because like most things, you need to learn the language first.
You do.
Yes.
You really do, because there is a culture of tools to all kinds of, I guess we'll say tools for art.
Yes.
And in anything. Well, that is really, that's some fascinating stuff. It seems like the transition is that, now, I started out a photographer out of college, and we still had film, and digital was just coming in, and digital has taken over. You know, the big thing then was, I guess I'm still biased toward it, is just the resolution quality from film
Yes.
over digital.
Yes.
Although those who've worked on that have really brought it up from when it was sort of primal pixels
Yes.
to very sophisticated capacity today, where you have really high definition.
Yes. It has gotten better.
And which can go beyond your regular 35 or 8.5 by 11 formats.
Yes.
And so it's just, I still like film though, but the digital, so it seems that the digital has really been the big transitional, hasn't it? And of course with AI has been part of the digital process.
Right. And again, we just don't want students to be scared of that. And we know when they go into their professional fields, they'll have to have some awareness and experience.
Yes.
Because it's going to be out there.
It's just going
to
be
be competitive,
out there.
they'll need to know how to work with it. So,
Yeah.
yes.
And turning it into a tool is transformational, because it just takes it, in that creative process, you're just going up another level.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is important, because it's not going to replace us. And that's, we're not going to let that happen. So.
Well, I certainly hope not. With the concerns with AI is just that you create a Frankenstein type of process, whatever. It's non-human. So that would be, I think that's the main concern.
Right.
And replacing people,
right.
which is not a good thing. But so you'd have to have some safeguards. But as a tool for art and for industry would be, that can be perfectly harnessed.
Yes.
So, yeah, don't be afraid. That is a good mindset to be in.
And it's important, because I think the creativity of the students that we work with is really remarkable, and what they can bring to the field exceeds what AI can do on its own. So it's,
Sure.
I think, important.
Because it has its limitations.
It does, and it's
because
based
it's
on
all algorithms or lines of code,
right.
which they can only do what they do.
Right.
Yeah. And I know that people say it can sort of think on its own type of thing, but that would have to be, that would still limited within its capability.
Yes.
It's
It
just
learns,
duplication is really what it is.
Yeah, and it in theory learns from people. So
Yeah.
the smarter we are, the more it learns.
Yeah.
So
And then in a way, the smarter we become. I'm just absolutely fascinated by your story about helping those ALS patients at the hospital and that kind of therapy. That just, and it's connecting also, you're involving family members and their loved ones. And so that's just a fascinating, that's beautiful. It really is.
I've been really very fortunate to be able to work in those spaces, and really grateful for what I've learned, and those are incredible opportunities. And and I've had some people even say, well, that's not art, and I disagree. I mean, art is something where the artist can bring something to the community and contribute to the quality of life and to the health and well-being of the community. And I think that's an important role that artists can play. It's
Yes.
not, every artist doesn't have to do that, but a lot of artists do. And there are a lot of spaces where the arts contribute really significantly to healing in positive ways.
And that's very good. And you have a program that's well, it's already been introduced to Herron and Indiana University. Can you please tell us about that?
Yes. So 11 years ago, we started an art therapy program at Herron, and that's been a really wonderful addition to the school and helped us connect with health and life science and another space where we can connect with different technology and STEM. But as of January 1st of this year, we have a new department at Herron. And, it includes, it's called Music and Arts Technology, that department. But, and it has two programs. It has music technology and music therapy. So now we have a music therapy program and an art therapy program, which I was very excited about that opportunity to bring those together. And this idea that we could explore creative therapies as a larger conversation, art therapy and music therapy, and then eventually exploring motion and dance therapy and drama therapy. These seem like areas that would contribute in positive ways to the community and would be spaces that, because all the students I've worked with want to do positive things. They want to help make the world a better place. And so these are not the only paths, but these are paths that do create opportunities for that. And
no, that's fabulous. And so you've combining the arts with music also being part of the arts, but art and music.
Yes.
That more our traditional idea of the what would we call that, representational art with music. And now, so you've got two different groups there. I'm sure the students would take cross classes.
It will be, yes.
Yeah. And so they would integrate both.
That's what we've seen. The students, even if they're not in classes together, really value their time together, and they're helping us sort of define some paths forward. And it's been exciting to see that. And the faculty, at first, some people are like, well, how will we connect with people that aren't artists and that are not artists? And it's like, well, no, they are artists, and we're all artists. And so that's a very easy space for us to work, and it's created a lot of really exciting partnerships and collaborations, led to, well, I think it's added to innovation, and I think we have really exciting paths forward that we're starting to discover by working together.
You mentioned a doctor of neurology. Would you have any, do you have any medical health professionals or groups that you would be interacting with? Like, for instance, would your students take an internship with one of the hospitals or a group, and they would go in and they'd have, a project where they would come up with an idea for therapeutical purpose for that patient, for patients and so forth.
And that's been a part of the art therapy program and is also part of the music therapy program. But we're also finding other spaces where students, for example, that are interested in design, and experiential design and interior design, working within the healthcare community to help create spaces that contribute to healing and helping to support hospitals and other venues to really develop, understand, and manage the experience that people have when they enter the building and the whole experience they have there. And those are areas that we train students in, and those are spaces we have this incredible center at Herron called the Basile Center for Art, Design, and Public Life, and through that center, we connect with many different organizations to create professional experiences that truly exactly mirror professional experiences students will have after they graduate. We do it within a structure where it's an academic space, so we make sure that it's going to be a positive learning experience, but they get exposed to the entire process, and they really understand the kind of behind-the-scenes experience. And through those, we've created opportunities for design experiences. Sometimes people come with an idea they don't know how to communicate, so we help them connect with a design student that can help them develop the visual communication design side of that, but also the design pitch. But it's also created lots of spaces. We recently did the first new piece of public art at the airport. It's the first piece since 2008 that was permanently installed. It's called Blue Skies. 12 sculpture students developed proposals to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the International Center. And Brenna McCarty was selected, and her work was, she and the other students all stayed involved in the design development phase, in the fabrication and installation of the work. So everybody involved in that got to have an experience behind the scenes. And that work now is up. 204 one-foot blue spheres hanging over the escalators at the airport. It's exciting to be back out there and to engage with that audience. And to create those opportunities for our students is really important.
Well, very fun. Gosh, you've given us just a whole list of things. That's congratulations on that. I think if you can use art to help people, especially healing. I love your idea about the waterfall, and I love that story of your connection from the place you grew up in Richmond, and then also in Scotland, where your family had come from. Connecting that way. That's a very artistic mind. Your score just went up on the the fine arts test, and so but that kind of connection, I think, very much, having spent part of my life in a place in the Pacific Northwest where it's just going out into the forests or the woods and so forth, and go hiking, and it's just so beautiful. And you're right, there's a sort of a healing thing about that just encountering that. Yes. And even waterfalls. I mean, I think if we had more of them in urban centers, it would it like takes you to a peaceful place. It does. Immediately. Yes. And so, well, thank you. You're being creative with your program.
Thank you. I feel really lucky. I wanted to be an artist and then began to teach and really fell in love with teaching. Found that as a space where I could kind of give back because I had amazing teachers. And so I was really passionate about that. Didn't expect to be dean, but in 2020 I was asked to step in as the interim dean. And I was dean for 2 months before COVID, and then it's been a wild ride, but it's been really impactful. And the ability to help not only students, but also the faculty and staff and the community to make art has been really impactful, and something I felt very fortunate to get to be a part of. And so this has been, I'm very fortunate, and it's been a really wonderful career, and I'm grateful for all the opportunities. I want to keep putting work out there, so we'll find a way to do it all.
Well, that's great, Greg, and congratulations again. And best wishes on your on the future with that. Now, to close, is there anything else that's coming up that you would like our listeners to be aware of or look forward to? Do you have any programs? Are there going to be any events? Or
yes,
we can point people to your website.
Thank you.
With for the school.
That would be great. And so this is Herron is in its 122nd year. So this is really rich history and really wonderful alumni. And we're engaging more and more with alumni. And there are some events. There's an event later this summer celebrating Harry A. Davis, who was a faculty member, and lots of incredible alum and faculty. Like the Indiana state flag was designed by a Herron faculty.
That's right.
And
it was.
The Circle Monument was created by a sculptor that taught at Herron. And so, but there are exhibitions that happen on a regular basis. We have gallery. If you go to the website, you can actually see the shows that are coming. And, but I'm excited always by that, because trying to bring the community to the campus, but also we go into the community. We do a community night once a month at 10 East Arts Hub. We do the programming one night a month there. And it's a space to come make art and to come for our students and faculty to go into the community and listen and learn. And so those are always exciting. But I think one of the things we're really excited about with the realignment of IU and Purdue, we have a new department, Music and Arts Technology, and as I mentioned, music therapy and music technology are now part of Herron, and that's creating some really exciting opportunities that are creating new learning opportunities. It's added a PhD program, so our first PhD program at Herron, which is exciting. But the performing arts and the visual arts, they intersect so well. It's really exciting. What we're seeing is that we're adding live music to other events we're doing. But the really exciting part is the way that the faculty and the students really work together well and really engage. And so I see really incredible opportunities coming forward with that. And our plan for the fall is to really expand on that. And I'm excited to see where this is going to go. But in this moment where schools are having some challenges in terms of enrollments and things, our enrollments are going up, which is really positive. And I think it's because we have a space where anything's possible. And a space where everyone can teach and learn, and a space that really welcomes multiple points of view and really welcomes individual experiences that you bring to the table. And I think that aligns really well with contemporary higher education, that we now, rather than just transferring knowledge, we're creating spaces where learning can happen. So we make fertile spaces.
Real learning.
Yes, exactly.
That's what it's about.
And innovation happens so easily in those spaces that we're really fortunate. The students are incredible, and it's always refreshing. If you have a hard day, go walk the halls and look at the art and talk to the students, and your day has just gotten much better.
Well, that's a great department to be in.
Yes, I feel fortunate.
Where it gets better when you just walk down the hall.
Yes.
Greg, thank you very much. We'll put those links on in the description notes. And best wishes for your school and for all your projects.
Thank you so much, and really appreciate the time. It was really wonderful getting to talk with you. So
yeah,
thank you.
No, this has been great, and thank you so much. And I love the stories. You've just had some really transformative. How do I say? It's like one of those things. Is shut up. It just some of these. The way you're taking art and using it in a transformative way, that touches everybody, and that's a good thing.
That is the goal, because I think the arts really do play an important role in our communities and in our lives. So, yes.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being with us today. It's been great to have you here.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Well, that's it for today's episode of the Omnibus Show. Today's guest has been Greg Hall, who is the Dean of the Herron School of Art and Design at Indiana University in Indianapolis. He's also the Valerie Eichmeyer Professor in Sculpture at the school. And we would like to thank our sponsor, Hotel Carmichael. We are recording today at Feinstein's, and we look forward to being with you on the next episode of The Omnibus Show.
If you enjoyed this program, please like, share, and subscribe to continue the conversation. For the Omnibus Show newsletter, please sign up at theomnibusshow.com.